Alright, welcome to editing Livestream for chapter 30. And if you're joining me, here today, or if you watch the recording, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe. It'll help me out. And let's get to it. I'm probably going to be mumbling a lot, so don't worry about it. If I need to talk louder and clearer to explain what I'm doing, feel free to request. Otherwise, here we go. Probably heard that. Alright, chapter 31. Dangerous student. I'm here too, Barnavane, came Okai's response after a long moment. He sounded weak and exhausted. That's probably going to make more sense to be at the front. A long moment. Response after a long moment of Barda's prodding. Continue to press for a response. From the dark dungeon cell. Finally, Okai's voice came through, weak and exhausted. Barda continued to press for a response from the dark dungeon cell. Finally, Okai's voice came through, weak and exhausted. I am here too, Bardavane. She breathed a sigh of relief. Oops. Good, good. Did they fix you up? Enough that I may heal. I am to start labor in 2 days. I suppose it is by the goddess's hand that I was injured. Oh boy, no, I'm not sure where I was going with that. Enough that I may heal. I am to start labor in 2 days. I suppose it is by the goddess's hand that I was injured. For you to find me. Oh, I suppose it was my... Otherwise, I would have been taken elsewhere. Meaning that it wouldn't have been as easy for Barda to find him. Enough that I may heal. I'm to start labor in 2 days. I suppose it's by the goddess' hand that I was injured, otherwise I would have been taken elsewhere. Excuse me. Yeah, I suppose so. Listen, I'm here with Nathalia's sister. A low growl came from the cell. Neroli eased back. Easy, easy. She's more like her sister than the ones who took you. She got me in here. Listen, one way or another, I'm getting you out of here. Impossible, said Okai. Their guard is too organized and well placed for escape. Besides, why would you? Barda straightened. What's that supposed to mean? I told you I wouldn't leave you. Okai's voice cracked. Because of what I've done. Barda rubbed her shoulder, a dull pain still present. What, this? It's nothing. Barda, I can ride with you no more. I've committed a grave offense. So you expect me to just leave you to enslavement? more of a thoughtful expression of her name. Barda, I can ride with you no more. I've committed a grave offense. Do you expect me to just leave you to... this cruelty. Whoa! Cruelty. She said, gesturing. Out toward the room. Hokai appeared at the cell wall, the tip of his maw revealing bared teeth with another low growl. Hands wrapped around the bars. Yes! He slid down to the floor in a heap. By the goddess Hokai, rest while you can. How can you do all that work if you don't let yourself heal? Hokai did not answer. Barda took a deep breath and let it out. All right, Fluffy, no more jokes. One sentence? All right, Fluffy, comma, no more jokes. Yeah, I feel like that should be one sentence. No more jokes. Yeah, you pissed me off, and I about knocked you senseless myself. And left you for Thurgan. I understood why you went mad. I did something I never should have done. Never would have if I had... Never would have if I had thought of a better plan. You were slipping off the saddle from loss of blood. If I didn't make you go insane, you'd be rotting on the ground somewhere, dead by Thurgan's hand. I don't know if that's true. If I didn't make you go insane, you'd be rotting on the ground somewhere. No, that's true. That's true. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm truly sorry for saying what I said, but I'm also not because it saved your life. As much as it sent chills down my spine to see you like that, I can't hold it against you. Now, if we can both just get over our faults, I'd like to be gone from this place sooner rather than later. Okay, I did not speak right away. It is more than I can ask for, Barda. Your mercy and penance is more what was offered. Mercy and penance is more than what was offered by those. What is more than what is offered by those over me. It's an hourly insult that I no longer wish to be subjected to. No, that's stupid. Let's see. It's an hourly insult that I no longer... It's an hourly insult. Oop. It's an hourly insult that I cannot stomach much longer. It's more than I can ask for, Barda. Mercy and penance is more than what is offered by those over me. It's an hourly insult that I cannot stomach much longer. Goddess Silstra, Jackie Elvenkind. Barda looked over at Norelia. Sorry, not you, Elise. Norelia remained horrified but did not protest. Did you take the news of Nathalia's death to her father? He asked. Barda nodded. Yeah, but he didn't believe me. What will you do? Barda thought a moment. I have to try once more. If nothing can be done for it, I'll come back to free you regardless. And it's too risky to escape now. I'll have to plan something. Very well. I shall trust you. Good. Barda smiled as Okai sat up, only the tips of his paw-like feet and hands showing in the dim light close to the bars of his cell. I feel like that should be changed into a new paragraph. Good. What a smile this. Okay. Here, you know what? Why don't we do this? Okay, so. Smiled. You should trust me. Besides, I've been itching to get back to Jessic. I don't know if he's found anything to do with Baldane or not, but I need to find him. A short noise of question sounded nearby. Barda turned. Who was that? She asked Nerelia. Quiet down, strange one. Nerelia called softly toward the third cell. Toward this. That's the cell between. Oh, I don't know if I remember the shortcut. 15. Nope. Oh, definitely not. Shoot. Crap. Windows special characters. It's been too long. Where's the A's? Oh, those are capital. Alt 0228. Where am I? Okay. 0228. There we go. Toward the cell between Basques and Okais. Quiet down, strange one, Nerelia called softly toward the cell between Basques and Okais. She turned back to Barda. He is the strange one. He has been a prisoner here for many years, first captured nearly a century ago when we caught him spying on our borders. He surrendered without question or protest. When we attempted to release him, he begged to stay and remain a prisoner. A century? Sounds strange indeed, agreed Barda. What does he do? I feel like that question doesn't make any sense for her to ask at this point. Century sounds strange indeed. Beg to stay and remain a prisoner. Century sounds strange indeed. Strange indeed. Agreed Barda. What does he do? Not even sure I know a better question to ask. Century, strange indeed, agreed Barda. Why would he want to stay a prisoner? Gave a slight shrug of her shoulders. Wow, I started this program a long time ago. I can't believe it's just now coming up. Oh, gravy, get out of here. Golly, piece of crap. Okay. Riley gave a slight shrug of her shoulders. To our knowledge, all he does is sit in his cell. Seldom do we even remember that he's here. Century, strange indeed, agreed Barda. Why would he want to stay a prisoner? Riley gave a slight shrug of her shoulders. To our knowledge, all he does is sit in his cell. Seldom do we even remember that he's here. Oops. I don't remember if I've been having Nerelia speak in contractions. I don't think the elven kind usually do. I don't remember what I've been doing. Alright, Barda looked into the cell. Not into. It's more like she just turned to look toward the cell. Barda looked toward the cell. She thought she saw a soft yellowish glow begin. Toward the cell. Been trying to avoid personal, I don't know what you call them, personal things she thought she seemed, she looked. Let's try this. A near imperceptible, soft yellowish glow began to emanate. In the darkness, which illuminated the outline of a man. Near imperceptible, soft yellowish glow began to emanate. Soft yellowish glow began to emanate. Oh my gosh. Near imperceptible, soft yellowish glow began to show in the darkness. Emanating from the source. Emanating from the source. No. Illuminating. Barda looked toward the cell, and a near imperceptible, soft yellowish glow began to show in the darkness, illuminating the outline of a man. But as soon as Barda saw it, it faded. Looking back to Okai, she knelt. Just leave that very abruptly. Barda looked toward the cell, near imperceptible, soft yellowish glow began to show in the darkness, illuminating the outline of the man. But as soon as Barda saw it, it faded. Stared a moment longer, curious. darkness overpowered the little light. Existed in the space. Could have been mere play of the shadow. Barda looked toward the cell. A near imperceptible soft yellowish glow began to show in the darkness, illuminating the outline of a man. But as soon as Barda saw it, it faded. She stared a moment longer, curious. Had it been a trick of her eyes? Clearly someone resided within that cell, but the darkness so overpowered what little light existed within the space that it could have been a mere play of shadow. Alright, I feel better about that. Looking back to Okai, she knelt. I'll do everything I can to come back. I'll do everything I can to come back no later than tomorrow. By tomorrow night. Come back by tomorrow night. Figure out some way to break you free. I think I'll have help, she said, looking to Nerelia, who nodded. I shall be ready, said Okai from the darkness. At that moment, the guard who had stood at his post rushed in. Prisoner count. Is that right? I feel like I'm missing a comma somewhere. At that moment, the guard who had stood at his post. At that moment, the guard who had stood at his post rushed in. Not sure if that's right. I can be a bit of a comma whore, so I'm not sure if that's... Anyways, I'll leave it for now. Prisoner count Lady Nerelia, the captain is on his way. Barda stood and followed the elvenkind on her way toward the hallway out. Stood and followed the elvenkind as she rushed toward the hallway. As they passed the guard, Nerelia patted the man's shoulder. It was enough, I shall keep my word. Passing down the way they had come, a group of 3 in armor, the silver accents glimmering in the low light, came around to another corner. They did not stop them. Continuing, they crept through the more continuing. They crept through the more lighted chamber. Continuing, they crept through the more lighted chamber with levels of cells stacked with stone. Continuing, they hurried through the more lighted chamber, lighted area of the dungeons with levels of cells stacked. Continuing, they hurried through the more lighted area of the dungeon with levels of cells stacked up along the stone walls, and followed the primary tunnel back out onto the platform grazed by moonlight and the lit pyres. Same guard stopped them again. Are you satisfied, Anurinda? Will your sovereign be satisfied? Barda smiled from behind Aurelia again, once again altering her voice to a more nauseatingly pleasant one. I will take word to my sovereign that Bask remains imprisoned by the mighty hand of the Shynerian Elvenkind. He tilted his head in a nod. Offer her our oath that the murderer will be sure to serve the sentence for his crimes, and offer condolences for her loss on our behalf. So I shall, she said with a bow. Aurelia shadowed the action. I will speak of your cooperation to Lord Yalowell. Good eve, Lady Aurelia. Okay. Barda could not leave the walk back to Norelli's home in quiet before every task she put herself to. It was always necessary to prepare for potential dangers. Could not leave the walk back to Norelli's home in quiet. Important rest. Mind. Strolled past the tree-top homes. For every task she put herself to. As well as she could for potential dangers. And how she might mitigate them. She'd been woefully unprepared for her audience with Aurelia's father. Yallow's attack left no permanent damage, but it was a clear warning that she had more than enough strength to present a palpable threat. Especially if she could not properly defend herself. Oops. Not properly defend herself without having the entire Shynerian Elvenkind come down on her. Properly defend herself without having the entire... More than enough strength to present a palpable threat. More than enough strength to present a palpable threat. It's clear warning that she had more than enough strength to present a palpable threat, especially if she could not properly defend herself without having the entire... I'm not sure what I was trying to say here. Especially if she could not properly defend herself without having the entire Shinieri Elvenkind come down on her. Alright. I think I know where I was trying to go with this. No, I left him. It was clear warning that he had more than enough strength to present a palpable threat. To engage the Elvenkind Lord in battle. Test of her strength. Especially if she cannot properly defend herself without having the entire Shinieri Elvenkind come down. Clear warning that he had more than enough strength to present a palpable threat. Test of her strength. Oh my gosh. She needed to learn how to defend herself against him. Oh, okay. Avoiding an outright battle. Be in her favor. She wouldn't. She would do everything she could. Avoiding an outright battle would be in her favor, but she... An outright battle would be in her favor. Avoiding an outright battle would be in her favor. So adds to avoid... No. Oh my gosh. What an outright battle would be in her favor. Otherwise, she'd find herself contending with the entire Shannarian Elvenkind army for having engaged Lord in combat. Avoiding the outright battle would be in her favor, otherwise she'd find herself contending with the entire Shannarian Elvenkind army for having engaged the Lord in combat. However, she couldn't allow Yalowell to catch her off guard again. Oh, okay. I think I'm happy with that. Jiminy Christmas. She needed to learn how to defend herself against him. Avoiding an outright battle would be in her favor. Otherwise, she'd find herself contending with the entire Shannarian Elvenkind army for having engaged a lord in combat. However, she couldn't allow Yalowell to catch her off guard again. Come on. She could walk away. She put forth an honest effort. Was it her fault Lord Yalowell of the Shannarian Elvenkind would not admit the death of his own daughter? The words she had spoken to Thalia as she lay dying echoed in her mind. I will see it done at any cost. Aurelia, she said, allowing the gentle breeze to brush at the warmth spreading to her cheeks. Whoop. Aurelia, she said, the gentle breeze brushing at the warmth spreading to her cheeks. Yes, Barda. I need you to teach me something when we get back. Aurelia sighed. Defense against my father. Yeah, how'd you do it? It's like the energy just went inside you. I do not believe humans can do what I did. I do not mean to insult, but it takes a nuanced understanding of magic. Barda scoffed. I know I don't look or act nuanced, but I had a teacher who was highly skilled in magic. I can deflect it easily enough, but I've never seen anyone do what you did. Very well, I will try, she said. But I urge you not to rely on my teaching. My father, to my knowledge, is the only one who has discovered this skill before teaching his daughters. Aurelia bent down and retrieved a twig lying on the ground. Do you know why powerful sorcerers carry staves of metal or wood? Barda thought back to her younger years and the rigorous training her grandfather put her through. The intricacies of magic were numerous and indeed nuanced. While the subject never went to the depths of philosophers and abandons, her grandfather spent a greater amount of time explaining superficial and practical understanding of the subject. Staves came up only a handful of times, and he dismissed it as something for only the bloodthirsty and power-hungry, of which he most often warned against. However, there was one small bit of key information that she retained from the matter. They are conduits for magic. Aurelia smiled, wagging the small twig in the air. That is part of it. Conduits, yes, but what is the source of the magic one might tap into? That I couldn't tell you. Never came up. I suppose if I had to guess, it's the material itself. Very good. Magic, while offered us by the goddess for use, is naturally a part of all Ashea. Naturally a part of all Ashea. Magic can be stored. As I'm certain you understand, each one of us carries a basic stamina for wielding magic that can be grown and with use and practice. However, when you feed your magic into an object, such as a staff, it is magic that can be used at a later time. Or, Aurelia looked at the swords hanging on Barda's. Oh, crap. She couldn't take her swords. She doesn't have them. Right? I'm pretty sure. Yep. There it is. Shoot. Alright. Well. Aurelia turned to her. Magic that may be used at a later time or for other purposes. One second. Okay. Or they turned to her for other purposes. For other purposes, perhaps strengthening a sword. Wow. However, when you feed your magic into an object such as staff, it is magic that can be used at a later time, or early turned to her for other purposes, perhaps strengthening a sword. Barda nodded, sweeping ebony strands behind her head. Use my voice in such a manner a time or two. Cut through this ancient elder race's shield once. A wise and clever use. But imagine spending years feeding your own magic into a single staff, building the storage to such a capacity that you might have near infinite reserves at your disposal. Storage in use. Aurelia's fingertips began to glow at the point of contact against the twig. Aurelia's fingertips began to glow at the point of contact against the twig. She held for but a moment, then handed the object to Barda. She took it, held it across her palms. Oh. Held it in her palms, watching the faint glow lingering on the wood dissipate until watching the faint glow lingering on the wood dissipate until it returned to its normal appearance. Now draw from it, said Merlin. Bar began to pull from the twig, absorbing its energy. Something familiar crept in. She could not tell if it entered her mind or if the sensation she experienced brought her to her. What? There's nothing as complex as thoughts, motions. Something familiar crept in. She could not tell if it entered her mind. Part began to pull from the twig, absorbing its energy. Something familiar crept in. Identify it. Another. How to phrase this? Sparta began to pull from the twig, absorbing its energy. Something familiar crept in, though she couldn't identify it. Some presence, some concept of another. Searched her own mind. Perhaps sensation. Searched her own mind. Perhaps this sensation is that. Another communicating with her very Sparta began to pull from the twig, absorbing its energy. Something familiar crept in, though she couldn't identify it. Some presence, some concept of another searched her own mind. Or perhaps the sensation was that of another communicating with her very core. With her very being. It was nothing as complex as thoughts and motions, or a will not her own. It was simply Nerelia. Painful but slight surge of energy forced her fingers open. Forcing her to drop the twig. She lifted the offended appendage to her lips. Bloody, that hurt. What was that? What do you feel? Pain? Aurelia laughed out loud at this. Truly. What I mean to ask is, whose magic do you feel? Yours, obviously. Is it obvious? Question took her attention from her surroundings, and she stumbled over a stone poking from the dirt. When she'd recovered, she looked at Aurelia in her gleaming set of brown eyes. I don't get it. What's this got to do with being able to absorb your father's energy? The smile on Aurelia's face was very similar to the one Thalia held when she was tolerating Barda and keeping her patience. The smile on Aurelia's face was very similar to the one that Thalia held. While tolerating Barda's lack of understanding. While tolerating Barda's lack of understanding. The smile on Aurelia's face was very similar to the one Thalia held while keeping her patience as she tolerated Barda's lack of understanding. Firstly, there was pain because others' magic is simply not compatible with one's own. To wield it is to know it. Wielding magic is like an infant learning to walk. To wield another's is like learning to walk again for the first time. Secondly, Barda, she stopped and turned. Secondly, Barda, she stopped and turned toward her. You must understand that your body is not only a source of the elder force, but it is also a conduit. When I faced my father, I allowed his energy to flow through me and out into the floor. Were you to try the same, you might be successful in channeling his strength through your body, but to do so would be to experience great pain, perhaps less than taking the full brunt of his power, but it would very likely leave you vulnerable in its wake. Your father made you learn to wield his own magic. Aurelia turned again and continued, Yes, for purposes I will not discuss here, he required it of us. He required such training. Barda thought for several moments as he walked silently through the Letharian wood. Treetop homes came in. Whoops. Something more impressed her mind as they strolled. As they climbed out of the valley, strolled through past the quiet wood. Ah, come on. There we go. Several moments they walked silently through the Letharian wood. Treetop homes came into view. Treetop homes came into view. Will you aid me? Bart asked. Aurelia veered left as a company of guards on horses trotted by. I think I must. Nathalia deserves to be mourned by her father. My father needs to remember that his daughter loved him. I'll see it done at any cost. You are kind, Barda. Sounds as though Nathalia took a liking to you, and you to her. Thank you for your friendship toward my sister. I was lucky. I don't make friends easily. Barda gripped the front edge of her cloak and used it to wipe her damp eyes. Rarely did she express so much sorrow. Bringing news of Nathalia's death to loved ones was an emotional duty to fulfill. Bringing news of Nathalia's death to loved ones was an emotional duty to fulfill. Required a constant restraint of her emotions. Crying as a child under her grandfather's tutelage was common, and she counted herself blessed by a soldier that he always showed understanding. However, he often prodded her, not to dismiss her emotions, but to keep control over them. Yet another thing that could get her killed in the wrong situation if she let her emotions dictate her actions. Years had she spent reining them in this case, however, she allowed them to flow more freely. Barda cleared her throat. Right then, you think we could practice for a bit when we return? I can't completely rely on you to watch my back each time your father might try to use his fiery fingers. I will do what I can to help you. Are you ready? Huh? Barda looked around, recognizing the same set of stairs protruding from the tree's trunk as Aurella's home. Aurella's home. They'd arrived without her knowing. Oh, let me see if I can find my horse first. Very well, I will tend to my home before we begin. Aurelia disappeared up the winding stairs. Barda blew a sharp whistle into the air. Rowan, come on, girl. Where are you, you silly horse? A moment passed before the sound of hooves trotting dully against the dirt drew near. The black Brilliant appeared out of sight, out of a light mist hanging low in the air with a series of blunt snorts depicting her malcontent of a meal interrupted. She dipped her muzzle into Barda's arms, again chewing on something. Interrupted your meal, huh? Sorry, girl. Maybe once I'm done you can go back. Rowan stamped her hoof. All right. Didn't know it'd be too late by then. I'll find you something before we leave tomorrow. Barda went to Rowan's side and pulled the arcanum ingredient from the satchel, thumbing through it. She searched for anything pertaining to her and Aurelia's conversation. As long as she had it, and as much as she'd studied her tomes, the tome's contents, she still hadn't rifled through all of its pages. She remembered reading something similar near the back. Reading something. She remembered reading something pertaining to the subject near the back. She flipped stacks of pages and carefully thumbed through until she spotted a section on the storage and drawing of magic. Reading through another page, the descriptions turned to complicated jargon she didn't quite understand. It seemed to insinuate that magic could be drawn from all of one's surroundings, from the inherent magic that resides in a sorcerer's creation. But it sounded ridiculous and beyond the realm of possibilities. Barda continued. Skipping past several pages, she came to another section that caught her eye. The words spoke of understanding and adhering to the confines of magical properties, even alluding to relics of a long-forgotten age called the Eyes of Eternal. words spoke of understanding and adhering to the confines of magical properties, even alluding to something called the Eyes of Eternal, relics of a long-forgotten age. Yeah. Like how that sounds. Then the book pointed out that if one could absorb another's attack, first holding their own magic at the point of impact, one could absorb another's attack, first holding one's own magic at the point of impact, then the shock to the body would dampen. Can I use that word? I don't know. The shock to the body would dampen significantly, and in fact, allow them to become familiarized with their attacker's magic at a near instantaneous level. Barda smiled. Indeed, that would be a very useful tactic. Perhaps she could stand against an elven-kind lord after all. Norelli returned, her cloak removed and seriousness drawn across her face. She eyed the tome in Barda's hands, and her expression changed to one of curiosity. What is that you carry? She asked. Barda snapped the book shut and stuffed it back into the leather satchel. As she began to pull her hand away, she found her fingers clinging tightly to its binding. Just a little extra help, something to fill in the gaps of my understanding. Forcing her fingers to open, this tome slid back to the bottom of the satchel. Both stepped away from Rowan, out into an area relatively free of trees and fauna. Shifted dirt and scars marking surrounding trees suggested this was not the first time the clearing had been used for practice. Really, thoughtfully. I always find that tutelage under another instructor is wisest when learning the intricacies of magic. Learning from a tome, some more than others, can produce ill effect on the one who studies it. It's better than being left unprepared, she snarled. Aurelia flashed surprise at the outburst that had left Barda herself with eyes widened and dumbstruck. That had left Barda herself with eyes widened and dumbstruck. That's a little clunky, but I flashed surprise at the outburst that had left Barda herself with eyes widened and dumbstruck. That had left Barda herself with eyes with widened eyes. Aurelia flashed surprise at the outburst. Barda, too, felt her eyes widen and her jaw hanging loose at her sudden snarl. The Elvenkind glanced toward the set of stairs leading up to her treetop home with consideration of abandoning the training Barda had begged for. The action put fire into Barda's limbs. Leave then. If it's too much, forsake me as you did your sister. Ow. Barda swallowed. She could hear herself, but hardly believed her own words. Aurelia's hair flashed a fiery orange, whipping at the sudden turn of her head. Do not speak to me of loyalty. Barda grinned. Got the Elvenkind mad, did I? Maybe you'll think twice about telling me what to do with my own things. She scoffed. Probably take it for yourself the second I turn my back, huh? You only want it out of my hands so it can be in yours. Is that it? Aurelia stepped back, looking at Rowan, then snapped to her again. Barda, I only offered counsel. I said nothing of taking what is rightfully yours. Rowan snorted. It was not one of aggressive protest, but of timid and frightened question. Fog lifted from her mind. It was only a brief second that the veil dropped and understanding replaced the irrational accusation she had been hurling toward Aurelia. Why? Before she could recover, she looked hungrily at the satchel, and her thoughts drowned. Not thoughts. The clarity drowned. Barda reached for her swords, but Aurelia struck first. Her fingers slipped from the hilts and stretched outward just as the arcing light landed. Barda rocked back, pain stabbing at her fingertips. You want your lesson, Aurelia growled. I shall give it to you. Twice more, Aurelia pushed her back, forcing her to give up ground. Her hands... Barda's... She still doesn't have her swords. What am I doing, huh? Reach to her back. Forgetting. She still wasn't carrying her swords. Barda reached to her back, forgetting she still wasn't carrying her swords. Aurelia struck. Her fingers slipped. Nope. Jerked. Excuse me. Her hand outward. Barda reached to her back, forgetting she still wasn't carrying her swords. Aurelia struck. Barda jerked her hand outward just as the arcing light landed. Barda rocked back, pain stabbing at her fingertips. You want your lesson, Aurelia growled. I shall give it to you. Twice more, Aurelia pushed her back, forcing her to give up ground. Barda's hand shook at the pain and felt as though her fingertips had been crushed between rocks. Pain forced clarity and focus. Back into her. And she remembered Aurelia's words. Magic can flow. She is a conduit. The light came again. A jolt crashed into her fingertips. In a brief instant, energy flowed into her, down her arm, and toward her leg, but it stopped in her knee, kicking the leg out from under her. Barda felt in the dirt. All of the muscles in her legs seized. The pain drew her breath out, forcing her to gasp for air. Footsteps approached. Back, she screamed. Get back. Stretching a hand out, Flame pushed forward in a line rising from the ground at Aurelia. Just in time, the Elvenkind leaped out of the way, whipping a dagger toward her with the maneuver. Barda saw it, only aimed at her hand. Aimed at her hand, the weapon sunk into the dirt just as Barda swung the threatened arm out of the way. Flames Stretching a hand out, Barda pushed a line of flame forward. That rose from the ground at Aurelia. That rose from the ground toward Aurelia. Just in time, the Elmkind leaped out of the way, whipping a dagger toward her with a maneuver. Barda saw it, aimed at her hand, the weapons. Wasn't intended to kill, but she had aimed it at her hand. Just in time, Barda swung the threatened arm out of the way. The dagger sunk into the dirt. Stretching a hand out, Barda pushed a line of flame forward that rose from the ground toward Aurelia. Just in time, the Elvenkind leaped out of the way, whipping a dagger toward her with a maneuver. Barda saw it. It wasn't intended to kill, but she had aimed. At her hand. What? Oh. Just in time, Barda swung the threatened arm out of the way, and the dagger sunk into the dirt. Sunk into the dirt. Flames looked at the ground, but the rush of fire had dissipated. Stretching a hand out, Barda pushed a line of flame forward, which rose from the ground toward Aurelia. Just in time, the Elvenkind leaped out of the way, whipping a dagger toward her with a maneuver. Barda saw it. It wasn't intended to kill, but she had aimed at her hand. Just in time, Barda swung the threatened arm out of the way, and the dagger sunk in the dirt. Flames still licked at the ground, but the rush of fire had dissipated. Hoping Aurelia wouldn't press further, Barda turned attention to her leg. It refused to respond to her commands to move. She tried again. Her foot twitched. After several more attempts, flexing and stretching the muscles, they began to obey. Flexing and stretching the muscles, they began to obey. regained full use. Another brief moment, she regained full use. Before long, despite the needles prickling inside her flesh. Brief moment, she regained full use. Before long, despite the needles prickling inside her flesh, she pulled the leg under her and stood, staring at Aurelia with staunch determination. Do not test me, Barda. I have welcomed you into my home. I have not destroyed that welcome. Yet. What would I care if I did? Come on, then. Show me your strength. Part of her called out to be free from the prison she had locked herself inside. Barda knew a small part of her was crying out to stop. Aurelia did not deserve this, but rage and hunger superseded everything. There had been a goal to fighting in Aurelia, but she could not remember. She couldn't remember now what that was. It no longer mattered. Alright, it no longer mattered. Aurelia's feet shifted into an immoving stance. Light and branching electricity built at her thrust out hands, the pulse billowing her hair. Thunderous crackles reverberated at the wild energy. A familiar voice echoed to her. Magic. The words were her grandfather's. It's not a sword of steel, but a river, and you are its riverbed. The words gave strength to the part of her locked away. In a flicker of memory, everything her grandfather taught her of honor, strength, and an acute mind pushed aside the lust of power. Her purpose for being here moved back into place. It was now, or she would never be ready. She must do what she came to do, and she must survive in the process. She was not about to die on a quest to fulfilling a promise of benevolence to her former paladin. Promise. No. Quest to fulfill a promise to her former paladin. Her fingertips began to glow as she pushed her magic to them. Light branched toward her in slow time. It was brighter, the branches larger than any time before. It met her fingers, this time not with a crash, but a gentle flow. A tingle surfaced against the tips, insignificant pinpricks, hardly even pain. Then it trickled down, flowing and softly bending through her body until it reached her feet, prompting her to release it out into the dirt. It emptied from her as water dripping from her skin. Without having realized she had closed them in the first place, Barda opened her eyes to see a definitive dumbfoundedness. That's a bit of a mouthful. Barda opened her eyes to see. Disbelief. That's much more simple. Barda opened her eyes to see disbelief etched deeply into Norelli's features. Even in her short time associating with the Elvenkind, never had she seen one so uncomposed, nor mouth hanging agape. Your tome, said Norelli, seething, is a poison, and you drink it willingly. Barda cocked her head at the smug Elvenkind. Whatever control had arisen slipped. Barda lunged forward with a fierce cry, calling the dagger stuck in the ground behind her to her command. Her hand slung forward, the dagger with it, with everything Barda could put into the effort. The action sapped the last remaining bit of strength left in her, and she stumbled to her hands and knees, panting for breath. Beads of sweat ran down her face. Drops fell from her nose onto the dirt. Black strands of hair trembled in front of her vision, muscles struggling to keep her off the ground. As her own rage began to subside, she heard faint calls. What had she done? Hazy memories grew into clarity. It had happened too quickly as the realization of her actions pressed down on her. It was like a miasma that hindered reason, her ability to comprehend anything but her fear of the Arcanum Enchiridion. Fear that the Arcanum Incuridian would be taken from her possession. As it cleared, she closed her eyes and sunk between her arms, resting her head on the dirt below. The calls came louder. Whimpers sounded amidst fierce grunts. Fearing what she might find, she couldn't allow herself to look. Anyone, Barda moaned. Scrambling to her feet, she ran to Norelia writhing on the ground, both her hands pressed at a growing red splotch on her side. At the sight of Barda, Norelia scrambled back, forcing more blood from the deep gash at her waist. Wait! No, Norelia, please, get back. A force punched her in the chest, sending her backward. Before she could stand to her feet, reeling from her tumble across the ground, Barda noticed a scene of destruction behind Norelia. The dagger had carved through the trunk behind her opponent, leaving a tall gaping slit opened by the magic that accompanied her attack. From the angle Barda had been thrown, she could see the dagger lodged to the hilt in the next tree back, the same split present but shallow. Shrugging off the attack, she scrambled to her feet again, then walked slowly, cautiously forward. I think that's a new paragraph. Shallow. Please, she whispered. I don't know what happened. She glanced back to find Rowan, but the horse was gone, clearly scared off into the Shanarian dwelling. You're right, by the goddess, you're right. It's never gone that far. I don't know what took me. I don't know. Barda sunk to her knees. I don't know how to stop it. Norelia winced, her hands returning to the wounded flesh. My Euleth, I need it. Quick. With a nod, Barda leaped to her feet. Leaped? I don't know. Barda leaped to her feet and hurried up the stairs. Her hands shook violently as she rifled through Norelia's home, not remembering exactly where she had seen where she had last seen it. Finally, she spotted the Euleth on a shelf. As she wound down the steps, she caught sight of Norelia moving, but she had slowed. No. The last bit of distance, she slid on her shins. Stopping just shy of colliding into the weakened Elvenkind. Taking her head in her hands, Barda lifted Norelia, then cradled her in her arm. Norelia's fingers groped the air and whispered pleas for the Euleth with closed eyes closed. Norelia's fingers groped the air and whispered pleas for the Euleth, eyes closed. Eyes shuddering weakly. Here, she said, forcing the statue into her palm. Come on, not you two. By the goddess, I'm so sorry. Whoops. Missing pair of quotation marks. Norelia's fingers closed and Barda held her hand over her, clutching both it and the Euleth beneath her grip, lips moving the statue. As Norelia's... Oh my gosh. No, that's not right. As Norelia's lips began moving, the statue began to bloom. As Norelia's lips began moving, the statue bloomed into a soft emerald green. Barda shifted. The ground had become wet with Norelia's blood, staining the grass, leaves, and dirt beneath them. Her movement caused a sickening noise of her knee crushing damp earth. She wanted to help, but the thought of her using her own magic to heal Norelia made her sick to her stomach, knowing it would only result in more pain, either to her or Norelia. But the thought of using her own magic to heal Norelia made her sick to her stomach. Her skill. What was needed? Situation. She wanted to help, but the thought of using her own magic to heal Norelia made her sick to her stomach, knowing her skill paled for what was needed in the situation. I need a different word here. It's not working. Knowing her skill. Knowing her skill. Whoops. Inferior, insufficient, miserable, substandard. Inferior might work. Her skill. Whoops. Skill is far too inferior. Skill. What skill? Skill in healing. It's far too inferior for what was needed. She wanted to help, but the thought of using her own magic to heal Norelia made her sick to her stomach, knowing her skill in healing was far too inferior for what was needed. It wasn't something she could risk. Not now. Not for a long time. Okay. I am happy with that. The emerald green turned brighter, but not nearly to the degree she had seen it before. The emerald green turned brighter? Seen it when Nathalia used it. The light held a little longer, then went out like an extinguished candle. Norelia had lost consciousness, her fingers releasing her sacred Eula. Barda checked the wound and sighed with relief. It had been mostly closed, but not completely. Taking the Euleth in one hand and maneuvering her arms underneath Norelia, she picked her up and carried her home. Oh man. Left off here. Okay, well, that was chapter 31. I am done. I'm going to go eat lunch. If you watch this, thank you, and we will see you next time.